everyone and welcome to this episode of PGC Ticket Weekly. I'm Toby, joined by Avnqr, and today we'll be talking about drop locations.
First off, we'll cover BBL versus Ghibli in Russia. They were in the same group in the ranked decision matches, and they were fighting all 3 games on day number 1. Luckily for BBL, Ghibli decided to leave, and that was actually a good success for Ghibli. They managed to qualify for the weekly final, and BBL didn't.
Ooh, spear! That's a safe that they smash.
Hopping over to Virtus Pro, they have had their fair share of issues in the early game as well. Virtus Pro on Erangel have been hot dropping alongside Danova in the apartments next to the school area. They have won some, they have lost some, but it still has not really granted them any big favors on the map itself. It's been very similar in the fashion, the way that things have gone down over on Miramar, where they've been hot dropping with Multi-Circle Gaming in Power Grid. And if we take a look at both these different situations, they play out very similarly on the maps. On Erangel, you have Danova all landing in the same apartment building. On Miramar, you have all the MCG players landing in or around the same brick building, where Virtus Pro on both maps like to spread out, try and take control. These other 2 teams, they just sit down, they hunker down inside a building and wait for Virtus Pro to make a move, and having had to do that a couple of times, they've also gone out and lost quite a few times. So hopefully we'll see an end to it coming in start of week 2.
Next up is ENCE versus FaZe. ENCE found success early in the ranked decision matches and actually was able to push out some of the other teams that usually loot Milta, but in the first game of the weekly survival, FaZe and ENCE decided to hot drop Milta, and after a prolonged fight, FaZe won it back and was able to successfully claim it for themselves for the rest of the weekly survival week.
And FaZe is going to win this one in the end.
Hopping over to Team Liquid, they have usually been able to loot up in both Pochinki and Picado, but coming into this tournament, they knew that both those areas were going to be massively contested and therefore opted not to land in either of them. So on Erangel and Miramar, they've had to find new places to go, which for the most part has actually worked out pretty decently for them. They have been caught in some situations where they lose players early on rotations, whether that's because they loot out or rotate out from new areas or not. Who's to say, but it's looking good for them regardless.
Liquid gonna push right into FaZe, and FaZe eats them alive.
Next up is Na'Vi. They actually are not contested in any of their drop spots, and they were able to play pretty well in the ranked decision games, securing them 17th place, which means they played 15 games in week number 1's weekly survival. Even if they won a game in the ranked decisions, they actually didn't manage to do that in weekly survival, and they were forced to play the bottom 16. They played a mediocre day, and they have 8 chances in week number 2, so let's see if they're able to close out a game in week number 2.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of PGC Ticket Weekly. I hope you enjoyed the talk about drop locations. Make sure to tune in next time for our halfway thoughts through the tournament.